So in this video, we're going to look at angles and parallel lines. So quickly go over things from the previous video and then going straight to answering some questions. So first, what is an angle? So the angle is the space between two intersecting lines or surfaces. So quick recap. If I had this angle, I could measure that with the protractor, and I just want to measure how I go from one line to the other. I would place that vertex, let's say it's B, right at the center here. I would line the line up so it's exactly on 0, and then I would measure and stop once I meet that second line. That would tell me what is the space between these two lines. Then, if I know the actual measurement of the angle, depending on what it is, it has a certain name. So acute is less than 90 degrees, exactly 90 is a right angle, between 90 and 180 is an obtuse, a straight line 180, greater than 180 is a reflex, and if it does a full rotation, it's 360 degrees. So let's go on to some questions about angles. Okay, so first one, we have some information and I'm going to work out what is the size of angle A. Well, based on this diagram, I know that I have a right angle. I know that's a right angle based on this symbol here. So I know that A and 39 equals 90 degrees. So I would subtract 39 from both sides. So I know that A equals 51 degrees. Nice and easy. Right, this next question here, we have some expressions and we have some points. We have adjacent angles. It tells me the measure, so this means measure, of A, B, and D. So because it's telling me that A and D are the walls, I know it's talking about the whole angle, equals 158 degrees. It wants me to work out what the size of angle X is. Well, I know that the angle ABC and CBD are adjacent to each other. That creates that whole angle in question. So the angle A, so the measure of the angle ABC plus the measure of the angle CBD is going to equal 158 degrees because that's the whole angle. So 2x minus 4, no, 22x, sorry, minus 4 plus 3x plus 12 equals 158 degrees. Then if I simplify my expression, I'm going to have 25x minus 4 plus 12 is going to give me plus 8 equals 150 degrees. Sorry, 158 degrees. If I minus 8 from both sides, 25x equals 150 degrees. If I divide both sides by 25, I've run out of space. I'm going to do it over here. I'm left with x equals, and then 150 divided by 25 is going to give me x equals 6. And that's all the question wanted me to do. If it wanted me to work out each angle, I would just substitute x into 6 into each one. Right, we're going to move on to parallel lines. Okay, so first off, what are parallel lines? So it's lines that are the same distance apart and never intersect. So these are 3 examples of parallel lines. Parallel lines are represented with these symbols here, these arrows, okay? And that is telling me that these 2 lines are parallel. So let's say I call this L and M. I know that L and M are parallel based on this diagram. If we have a transversal line that joins them together, we have some special angles that we can use. So the first one we're going to look at is alternate interior angles. They are congruent. Congruent means that they are the same measure. So an example of alternate interior angles is we have the inside angle. So I'm going to say this angle and this angle. They're alternate interior angles. They are congruent. So if I know that this angle, for example, let's say it was 50, this angle here is going to be 50. Okay, another example of alternate interior angles is this obtuse angle and this obtuse angle. They are also congruent. Okay, a nice way to remember it sometimes is I say it makes the letter Z. Doesn't matter which way your parallel lines are, that's alternate interior angles. The next one we're going to look at is corresponding angles. They are also congruent. So if I'm talking about corresponding angles, I have an interior angle, and on the same side of the transversal, I have the exterior. They are corresponding angles. So if this angle, let's say, was 62 degrees, I know this is 62 degrees. Another example of corresponding, there's plenty. I could be talking, let's say, about this angle and this angle here. They are also corresponding. If I change my color, I also have this obtuse angle and this obtuse angle are corresponding, and this angle and this angle are corresponding, and they are congruent. So we can say they're corresponding angles. They also satisfy different angle relationships. So for example, the two white angles here, they are congruent because they are vertical angles. They are vertically opposite, so they are congruent. We also know that the two white angles, so this angle and this angle, based on the last one, are alternate interior angles. They will also be congruent. So when it comes to angles and parallel lines, there's so many rules that you can use. There's not just one way to answer the question. And the last one we're going to look at is co-interior angles or consecutive, depending on what curriculum you're doing, but they have a sum of 180 degrees. So if I have this angle and this angle, they are called co-interior. They are consecutive. They are next to each other. They make the letter C, if that helps, and they will equal 180 when I add them together. And we have another pair on the opposite side. If I add them two together, they create 180 degrees. We can use a lot of other rules, vertical angles, angles on straight lines, doesn't matter, but these are just some of the rules we can use with parallel lines. So let's go and have a look at a question. Okay, so we have two parallel lines, we have a number of variables, and we're going to work out the missing, the unknown letters. So in this example, we only have one pair of parallel lines. So let's say I call this X and I call this Y. Only X is parallel to Y. The transversal lines, let's say I call them R and P. They are not parallel, they do not have these arrows on. So the first angle I'm going to work out, which is super easy, is angle B. Okay, I know that angle B and the relationship with 72 is that they are alternate interior angles, so they are congruent. So they are alternate interior angles, okay? And it's important that you know the names because you will be expected to write the reason in an exam, but they are alternate interior angles. Now I'm going to look at angle A. Again, I'm not going to use parallel lines as a rule, but I know that angle A and angle B equal 180 degrees because they are adjacent and they form a straight line that lies on R. So A plus 72 is 180 degrees. Well, that means A is going to be 108 degrees. So we've worked two of them out, A and B. Now I'm going to move on to the last three letters. Again, I'm not going to use anything from the R because they are not parallel. So the first I'm going to work out then is C. C forms a straight line with 65. So I know it's going to equal 180, subtract 65, because them two angles form a straight line. So that is going to give me 115 degrees. Then I can use parallel lines in many ways. I can say that D and 65 are co-interior, so they would equal 180. Or, because I've already done some calculations, I know that D and C are corresponding angles. So they equal each other. So I know that D equals 115 degrees because they're corresponding angles. And then the last one for this one, E, again, is super easy. I've already done my workings out. E is going to equal also 115 because it's vertically opposite angles with D. They are vertically opposite, two lines have intersected. Okay, so there's an example of using parallel line rules and then using other rules that we know. Right, let's go have a go. One more question then. So here we have two parallel lines. I'm going to call this A and B. And I'm going to work out what X is and what Y is. Okay, so I need to look at the diagram. I can't put X and Y together. They're two unknown variables, so I'm going to try and avoid that. Well, I know that 7x minus 6 and 5x plus 8, they are corresponding angles, which means they are congruent. So I can say x minus 6 equals 5x. Let me just fix my pen a second. Oh, it didn't work. Equals 5x plus 8. and I can make them equal each other. Sorry, that's just like my pen. Okay, so now I've got an expression I can solve. So subtract 5x from both sides. 2x minus 6 equals 8. Plus 6 on both sides. 2x equals 14. Divide both sides by 2, and x equals 7. So now that I know that x equals 7, I can use this to help me work out what y is. Because I know that the y and 7x minus 6 are adjacent to each other, and they form a straight line. So y plus 7x minus 6 equals 180 degrees. And now I know what x is. So I can substitute that in. So 7 times 7 minus 6 is 180 degrees. Y equals 49, y plus 49 minus 6 equals 180 degrees. 49 minus 6 is going to leave me with 43 equals 180 degrees. So if I subtract 43 from both sides, that's going to give me y equals 137 degrees. And that is looking at parallel lines and angles on parallel lines.